Hello and welcome back to our channel. So when we started sailing, I know, actually before we even looked for the boat, we would have loved a video like this with just costs of how much things were. Not necessarily things we were going to buy, but just a ballpark of what people spend when living full-time on a sailing boat.
Yeah, a lot of these are kind of estimates of prices, and for the sake of this video we haven't included our labour costs in the actual final price. So if you're willing to work for yourself for free and willing not to get any kind of labour involved in it, this is kind of how much everything costs. We have included welding costs for some things because we can't do welding ourselves, so we had to kind of get labour in to kind of help with that. And also some of the items that we ended up getting for the boat over the last 3-4 years were given to us by companies in exchange for us working and kind of basically doing marketing for them and promoting their products and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's by no means free, and I think that's a bit of a misconception when people see people with these kind of items that they actually get them for free, but we've had to put a lot of time into anything that we got discounted in kind of exchange for those products.
Yeah, so for the sake of this video, we've also included those at the price you would buy them normally, because we researched really thoroughly each product and we would have spent the money on that product because of how well rated they were. So it's kind of irrelevant what price we paid, if that, in a way, because we worked the hours for them. So all being said, actually I just want to do a big disclaimer here. You can do this cheaper, you can do boat life cheaper than this, you can cruise cheaper than this, you can buy different products to this, you can leave the country you're leaving with less things than we have now. When we left the UK, the boat was incredibly basic. It was a priority for us to buy a very strong hull and structure of the boat because we know that's a lot harder to change. For us, we wanted a basic boat when we were buying it because also it fitted our budget a lot better. And then as and when we sailed and needed the items and felt a need for them, we could then add them. And I'd really recommend you to do the same if you're thinking about doing this. When we left, people said, oh, don't leave without a water maker or a bimini or a dodger or all these things. And we left anyway, and we made it just fine. Obviously, it makes your cruising life easier with these things and more safe, but we added them when our means allowed, and I think I would do that 100% over again in a heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, we navigated all the way from the UK to Mexico without a chart plotter and stuff like that, just using our phone. So it can be done, and you can do it really cheaply, and some people pull up their anchor by hand, and some people row everywhere, so you don't need a lot of these kind of, I don't know, I guess slight luxuries in terms of like an outboard and proper navigation equipment. You can be very basic.
But it does make life a heck of a lot nicer. We've done it really basic, and now we're doing it with these items. It makes cruising life so much more sustainable and enjoyable, for us especially.
Yeah.
And being full-time on the boat. It's a bit different if you use the boat for the summer and then haul out over winter, but we're full-time, so yeah, I think that's about it.
Right at the end, we'll tally up everything and tell you how much everything costs, because it's pretty shocking to us how much we spent on the boat over the last 4 years just on equipment.
Yeah, so actually make a guess down below right now. Write your guesses. Don't cheat. Don't skip to the end of this video. Guess down below and we will see who is the closest. Okay, so we've broken it down into several different areas. And I will just say we do have the prices on our phone, but we're not going to go through every single price because we will be here all day. I'm going to put a grid on the screen of all the things we've upgraded and the prices in US dollars and pounds. And then I'm just going to touch on a few little bits. Starting off with the first section, navigation and communication. This includes things such as, you know, our tri-light, our handheld VHF, our chart plotter. Quite notably, we did a huge Raymarine upgrade back in Mexico. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it here and here. And that was arguably probably one of the biggest upgrades for Tay-Lee. I mean, we added a new electric autopilot, chart plotter, radar, screens inside, and wireless wind sensor, and it was really key to bring the boat into the 21st century. But that came with a price, I will tell you. So just for reference, our Axiom 2 Pro Plus helm pod, that was about £2,200, and our radar, which is the Doppler radar, was about £2,000. EV1 plus the sensors, that was £3,000. But it's well worth it. And with these things, you have to get the full puzzle for it to really work. So we did the whole SeaTalk backbone, so everything communicates. And honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat, really, because it has been absolutely game-changing to us on our journey. But other things, we picked up the digital yacht AIS we got in the UK, and that was about £560. And we actually bought that one because it was about half the price of other AISs.
And that was second hand as well when we got it, wasn't it?
Mizzen and main mast aerials, we replaced the main and we added the mizzen, £320. So the total here was around £11,540. So a fair amount to get our boat to the 21st century, but all worth it.
As you've gathered so far, keeping Tay-Lee running is pretty expensive, especially with all the upgrades we've been doing over the last 3-4 years. So we're really thankful for today's sponsor, Tay-Lee. They're really helping us keep Tay-Lee afloat. Tay-Lee is especially relevant to us and what we've been doing over the last 3-4 years, hopping between all these different countries. They've really made communication much easier for us. Becca, what is an eSIM?
An eSIM is a digital SIM card built right into your phone, which eradicates the need to actually go to shore and get a physical SIM card, which is insane for sailors like us. We just open the Tay-Lee app on our phone and we preload a data package before we've even arrived to the country. Mind blown. It's super convenient and the pricing is far better than the physical SIMs we've used in the past. Plus, they've got coverage in over 200 countries.
With Becca being pregnant, it's even more important than ever that we stay connected, whether we be on board or on land. So we're extra grateful for Tay-Lee for helping us stay connected.
If you think this could be useful for you and your travel to stay connected to loved ones, and you want a 15% discount on Tay-Lee data plans, that's pretty good. Go to the Tay-Lee app and use the code TeuluTribe at the checkout, or just go to Tay-Lee.com/TeuluTribe for that discount. Thanks, Tay-Lee, and back to the video.
The next segment is everything to do with sails, rigging, and generally what makes this boat sail. So we've done a number of big upgrades whilst we've been on the boat. Pretty notably, we did all the standing rigging, we added a new Solent rig in there, we've had all the sails serviced, added 2 new sails, the inner radial cut head sail and an asymmetrical spinnaker, which we absolutely love. It's probably one of our favourite sails and we used it yesterday. Teek's back in the stack pack again. That's his favourite place up there as well. We've had new stack packs done. We've had all the sails serviced. Oh yeah, a load of running rigging as well, so new halyard. The Solent rig by itself was around £6,000. Depending on the size of the boat, it might be a little bit cheaper or a little bit more expensive than these as well, obviously, because we've got quite a small rig on this boat. The total cost was £21,650.
The next section, which is a very important section for us, and actually I would recommend you invest the money earlier rather than later into this, because we had quite a few sleepless nights worrying about our windlass, chain and old anchor until we just spent the money and upgraded. And honestly, it's something that we just have never looked back at, never regretted. And in the long run, it saved us a lot of money in marinas, because we will always choose to be on anchor if we can. And we're currently anchored in 30 meters, which is a lot deeper than a lot of boats can anchor, but it means that we can save the money in the long run. So our anchoring setup, we replaced the windlass for a lovely Muir 1500 watt windlass that allows us to pull up the chain at depths like 30 meters. We also have our wonderful Rockner Mark II 25 kilogram anchor, which has never budged and sets like this, so also was worth the investment. We have 100 meters of Titan 10mm chain. We also ran a load of new wires from the windlass to the helm and to the engine batteries, because the old wiring was far too skinny, worryingly skinny. We also added a up and down switch at the helm. So just to spitball some prices for those, just the chain alone was about £1,000. The windlass was over £2,000. The wiring to the helm was a couple of £100. The actual wiring from this to the engine batteries was actually a couple of £1,000. We were in Aruba and primarily had to spend the money on shipping, which was a shame. And the total we spent on anchoring was about £4,120, but every single penny was worth it. Leading on from that section, which is my favourite section personally, and also an area that is needed if you're going to anchor, and that is power and electrical and everything that allows us to be off-grid. And if you're new here, we've done a lot of electrical work on the boat. It's pretty common to buy an older boat with dodgy electrics, just through different previous owners. Everyone has their own method, and it's always nice as a backup just to go through the entire system, get to know it working and not working, so you can know how to fix things if things go wrong, and also just what you want to upgrade. When we bought the boat, we had 2 engine batteries and 1 domestic, no, the other way around. When we bought the boat, we had 2 domestic lead acid batteries and 1 engine battery. We knew instantaneously that we wanted another engine battery and multiple more domestic batteries. We initially bought 4 AGM batteries. We didn't include the price of those in this because since then we have upgraded again, so we thought it was a bit irrelevant. However, lead is dead, and we quickly upgraded to Battleborn. We added 8 100 amp hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries from Battleborn, which have been amazing. Just for reference, those batteries were about £5,800, but to not worry about the battery percentage has been a game changer for us. We also, with that upgrade, added a huge 3000 watt multi-plus inverter, and this just allows us to run all our AC 220 plugs without worrying about tripping the inverter by boiling a kettle, etc, etc. Also been there, done that. We added 2 MPPTs, which are the charge controllers for our 2 755 watt solar panels. We added 2 for mainly redundancy. They also make it more efficient for each panel, and if one panel breaks, we can still run the other panel. The other things we added were a DC to DC charger, which allows us to run the engine on the alternator and charge the lithium batteries, which you can't normally do without that. We added a whole new wiring system. We also added a ton of 12-volt systems on board, such as the amazing ScanStrut wireless chargers and USB chargers. We've added fans, etc, etc. Oh, I almost forgot. We also added a Rainman water maker, which has been incredible. It's the high output 140 litres an hour AC system, and we literally just live on that water full time. We never need to fill up anymore. That alone was about £4,000, and I actually remember it being slightly more because we had to pay for shipping and customs to Panama, but we haven't included that because that's just how much you'd pay if you're in a country with slightly easier shipping. But we also spent £1,400 on our Victron Multiplus inverter. For the whole battery wiring overhaul, we spent around £1,000. We spent about £400 on the ScanStrut equipment, £400 on the new engine batteries, and about £260 on our DC to DC charger. That all came to around £14,600. So quite a bit. However, you have to remember we live within our means, so any money we earn, we then invest back onto the boat, which subsequently makes our life more enjoyable and more comfortable.
Leading on is mechanical, and I am in my favourite room right now. This is our engine room, for those who don't know where this is. And mechanical's kind of quite general in what we've put in this category. It's got things like the Hydrovane in it, which we have absolutely loved, and I used for probably about 24 days on that offshore passage up here. We installed it back in Mexico, and it was a fantastic bit of kit. Really, really well made, really well thought out. There's a reason that people are still putting on their boats however many centuries after it was invented, or decades even, maybe not centuries. But that whole Hydrovane system was £5,600, so not cheap at all, but they're built to last a lifetime. They are fantastic bits of kit. One of the other things that we added, which we absolutely loved, was our Brunton's folding propeller, and we added this back in Aruba and was an instant game changer after we got underway. It added about half a knot to a knot of speed when we were under sail because the whole prop goes like that, and so instead of dragging a bucket basically underneath you, you're dragging this kind of like streamlined thing. That propeller came in about £2,700. Whilst we were also in Aruba, we added 2 Lasdrop dripless shaft seals, so we added one for the prop shaft down here and one for the rudder shaft, and those were fantastic. We used to have grease packers on both of them, and they got grease everywhere. You have to fill them up all the time, and I don't know, we just didn't like them. They were not the best thing on the boat. They were original to the boat and had done a job well enough until then, but weren't great and definitely weren't dripless like these ones were. The one that we've got on our prop shaft here, which is the Gen 2 and the slightly better version because we needed it for a faster rotating prop, was £320, and the one on the shaft or the rudder seal at the back was about £220. So pretty reasonably priced for really important bits of kit. The total value of all the mechanical stuff that we've added on board comes to £8,120. Sorry about the noise you can hear at the moment. There's actually a tractor about to lift the boat out of the water in the yard that's near us in this anchorage. So yeah, if you hear anything, it's that. The next section is our dinghy and outboard section. And when we first started, we had a very basic setup. We had a very old 2-stroke and a soft bottom floor dinghy. And that was fine for a while, but we quickly realized that we needed something a little bit beefier and something that could take us a lot further than we were going. We had an engine breakdown in Panama in the middle of nowhere and could have really used this outboard to kind of tow us to the nearest safe place to drop anchor and do the repairs that we needed to do. We also added this whole new dinghy as well, which is a Zodiac hard bottom Nomad range. It's a double floored aluminium dinghy with a couple of lockers up the front. And we also added the Beach Master wheels to the back of this dinghy as well, so I can easily lift it up by myself and drag it up beaches. And I think Becca can as well. So yeah, it's a fantastic bit of kit and we're really happy we added it. Another thing on having a dinghy, which can go a little bit further as well, is that if we ever have a medical emergency on board, this is probably about 3 times the speed of this boat. So if we did need to get to a town very quickly or anything like that, this boat would be able to get us there pretty darn quickly. Just to give you some totals on how much everything cost, the dinghy cost about £1,760, the Mercury outboard about £2,600, and the Beachmaster wheels about £300. This whole dinghy setup, including the grapple anchor and tank, cost £4,980.
The next section, which we did mainly last year in Chiapas, and this was just to make the boat more of a home, was our galley refit and both heads. Now, some of this was purely aesthetics. Things like the sink we needed because the 2 smaller sinks just flooded the side all the time and we were constantly having to reseal and varnish the wood. So that was a really practical one. We love this sink and we use it a lot on passage to store things in too that roll around normally. The heads as well, we added a new shower, we added the sink bowls, we actually added a shower sump in the front because what happened before, as you know, when we got the boat, the shower drained into the main engine bilge and it created just this humid environment which is just prone to making things rust. You don't want a wet bilge if you can help it. Lots of boats do have it, but if you can work out ways to direct the water out the boat rather than into the boat, it is preferable. So on this, we spent about £500 on the forward head, we spent about £400 on the aft head because it's slightly smaller. The shower sump that we glassed in and the whale high capacity pump to pump the water out was about £240. The sink we bought in Mexico and the tap was about £320. We actually bought the biggest one we could get for this space, which has been awesome. We ended up converting the boat from butane to propane, not by choice, but because we simply couldn't find butane anywhere in North America, and we spent about £120 on those bottles in Home Depot. We also, back in the UK, wanted to make sure our gas system was absolutely solid, and whilst we did the work ourselves, we called in a professional afterwards who also installed a gas leak bubble detector, and that detector alone was £320, but just gives us the peace of mind on board. And the total for that section is £3,020.
This section is all to do with the structure and deck of the boat, and some of the big things that we've added on here, most notably, is probably this hard dodger, which was an absolute labour of love and is made out of fiberglass on the outside and then sandwich wood construction on the inside with perspex windows and a few other little bits that we added here as well, like all the clutch cleats and redirecting the blocks and all those kind of bits. The biggest thing that we probably ever added to the boat is actually behind the camera at the moment, and it's our solar arch from Atlantic Tower. We added this back in Chiapas and it allowed us to put a really big solar panel on top and also have enough clearance under it to have the hydrovane. On that as well, we've also got our outboard mount, and we tried to come up with our own solution for this for a little while and try to figure out how we could get the outboard mounted on the boat in a really safe and secure way. There wasn't any kind of, I guess, pre-made things for the boat that we could figure out how to get onto the arch or get onto anywhere on the boat. So we ended up reusing some of the old stainless from our old davit, gave it to a welder in the cruise, and they fabricated a really cool right angle bracket that goes on the side of our solar arch and is fantastic, and it's actually made the solar arch a lot more solid because there's a little bit of flex like that, but now it's completely rigid, which is fantastic. In this as well, we've also got Seacock skin fittings and a few other bits like that. So the Atlantic Tower is about £3,200. The Hard Dodger, not including our time, we spent a lot of time on this, was about £2,000. Our custom outboard mount, which was half the price of what it should have been, came to £600 because we reused the old davits, which are really good stainless. And the total for all of those items was £8,390. This whole next section is all plumbing, and we've also got some plumbing that we did on the fuel tank as well. There's only kind of 3 things in here. The first thing is we added a 150-litre water tank underneath the pilot berth just over there, and we got this second hand in a marine store back in Plymouth, and that cost around £100, and then all the kind of install costs and everything like that was quite cheap for that. We also added this sender gauge in our main tank so we can actually tell how much is in this 200-litre tank down here, and wired it up to a little gauge up there by the control panel. And we've also added a sight gauge down in the engine room, and altogether that cost around £270, so pretty reasonable for all of that.
How much was the cat?
The cat was free.
The next section is safety gear. Now this is something we really prioritised and didn't skimp out on. I think in general, if you're going to spend any money on gear, spend the most money on safety gear. At least we did. And one of the things we quite liked about the boat when we got her, in a weird way, it was a blessing in disguise really, is the fire extinguishers were, the fire extinguishers were very average, very almost out of date and very old. And this, to some people, would be frustrating. You know, you've just bought this new boat to you and you're hoping that the safety equipment is good. However, for us, we realised very quickly that it could instill a false sense of security if you have pre-existing equipment that you don't know if it's been correctly serviced and actually how good it is. So the first thing we did was got rid of all those. We added our new fire extinguishers and fire equipment. We also added new life jackets, such as these amazing Crew Saver, really offshore life jackets. We added an EPIRB, inflatable fenders, docking lines, fire alarms. You list it, we pretty much added it, and there was no expense saved in that area. In the end, if you're not safe, you can't continue to do travels like this. You can't continue to sail. Our EPIRB was about £820. One of the cool things about these, which I guess is cool, but it also isn't cool, if you did ever use it, they replace it for free. Obviously, it would be a pretty bad situation to use it, but that's good to know. Our offshore 4-man life raft, which is over 24 hours, meaning you could survive in it for over 24 hours, was about £4,000. Now this is a pretty big cost. However, should our boat sink, we want something that will be very high quality and guarantee our survival. So this was a no-brainer. Our life jackets and clips were £1,200. We also obviously allow crew to use them on passage. They have a man overboard and a PLB detector in both, so we know that should someone go over, we can locate them and any other services can locate them. Our docking lines were £400 and our inflatable Dan Boy was £160. This will locate someone should they fall overboard. And the total was, drumroll please, £5,030.
The last section is miscellaneous, and there's kind of 4 items in here where we didn't really know where to put them. One of the main things in here is tools, and to begin with, we bought a lot of second-hand and used and quite old tools. The drill that we had for the first kind of 2.5 years was a very old Makita used drill, and it was fine, but to drill through the deck we had to use about 3 battery changes to get it through. It overheated a lot, and it was all right for what we needed it, but throughout the last kind of 3 years we've slowly upgraded our tools to kind of better tools like this one right here, which we only got last year and it's fantastic. But you can kind of start off with kind of cheaper tools, and depending on how big of a project you want to do, you can kind of like slowly upgrade your tools throughout the time. But yeah, we didn't really start with that many at all. Also in this category is the diesel heater, which has been fantastic up here, and we actually used it on the passage a little bit coming up here as well. We got hit by a few cold fronts. It was very valuable for kind of drying out the boat. We've also got our bilge pumps and cruising guides in this section as well, and all of those items altogether cost £1,640.
So there are all the costs of how much we spent on the boat. That obviously isn't including servicing and maintenance and spares. We have a ton of spares that we have accumulated and bought over the years. Obviously we haven't included those. But the low end of the scale that we spent is
about £75,000, which is kind of crazy.
And the high end is 100,000. And we knew that it was going to be somewhat expensive, boat life. Any kind of life is expensive once you start upgrading things and making your life more comfortable. We're well aware of that. We don't regret anything.
No, and it kind of, those numbers seem really big at the moment. If you think about it, that over the last kind of 3-4 years as well, a big part of that has been part of our income as well, because we got these products for a big discount or free in exchange for us working and doing kind of deliverables for certain companies and stuff like that. So it seems a lot bigger than it actually is, and that's kind of hard to explain exactly. But if you know how YouTube works and how we would basically earn our money, a lot of that will kind of is basically our income.
We earn a lower income, but that money is directly put onto the boat, which we're really happy about. In the end, we prioritised at this point in our life upgrading the boat and making our home more comfortable and safer, which is 100% not a regret and something that we would do again in a heartbeat. So on that huge number, we hope that you all enjoyed the video, and maybe you did guess correctly, maybe you guessed too low, too high. It's interesting to see your guesses. So on that, we hope you all enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and we'll see you all again next week. Bye.